So, do you want to talk about Genshin? Shall we start off with
Yeah.
Genshin Impact?
Sure.
So, if you have been under a rock recently, basically, Genshin Impact, it kind of came. We saw it in a PlayStation State of Play or something. I don't remember where we saw it. But then it just kind of released out of nowhere, and everyone's been loving it on the internet, and we haven't really had time to talk about it. So, I know you've been playing it a lot, Sam.
Yeah.
Cal, you've also played it a little bit, and then today I played it for 6 hours, so we can do some first impressions on it. So I'm going to throw it to you, Sam, because you probably, I don't know how much time you put in. Do you know, roughly?
I don't know either. I haven't checked. It's
So,
probably
yeah.
at least probably 20, 30 hours over the past 3 or 4 days.
So I guess my question to you is, what is Genshin Impact? For those of for those in the audience who haven't heard of it.
Well, the simplest way to put it is that it's like Breath of the Wild, but it's anime.
Even
It's
more
basically
anime.
an open world, adventure game where, you can get all sorts of weapons and characters and stuff, and it's a gacha game, like mobile games, so you can pull characters with the in-game currency, and you can spend money to get that currency as well. But,
If you want, if you feel
if you
so
want, it's
daring.
not required, but
If you really
Yeah.
want that waifu, dude. If you really want that waifu, that's the problem,
some
right?
people really want that waifu.
Hey man, if you're like us, you're like, hey, dude, I'll take whatever I get because I'm not paying money. But I can guarantee there's some people that are like, damn it, I want that one character. Here's my wallet. Like, here it is. Chuck my credit card at it. Here's $200. Still, I didn't get it. I got the fucking lolly instead. God damn it.
He's still salty.
Oh.
You even got a 5-star Wally
So that's
girl.
how that happened.
Now he's
I didn't
pissed.
give them money. I'd like to point out I have not given Genshin Impact any money. I don't have money to spare. Next month, I don't know if you've heard, there's this
Ethan
little
would like to
indie.
clarify that he did not give money to the lolly.
No, I did not. It did not happen. How dare you assume such a thing? No. With this little indie thing coming out called a PS5 next month, I don't really have the money to be spending on a gacha game right now. So, no, I just got an unlucky lucky pull, I guess. But the one thing that's weird to me is for a free-to-play game that's basing its entire thing on gacha mechanics, right? It wants you to spend all this money. It wants to sink its claws into you, so you do end up giving them money. I'm so surprised at how far in the back end the microtransactions are. Like,
Yeah.
they're not that intrusive, really. It's just kind of crazy.
No.
And you
They
get a
don't
lot for
shove it in
free.
space at all.
Yeah, and you can get a lot for free. Like, you get so many pulls for free anyway. It's kind of like crazy how much of a value proposition it is. Obviously, people do want to spend money on it because they made their money back in 11 days on the entire game. The entire game was profitable in 11 days. Good job, Weebs. You really did us proud there. Yeah, man, it's so crazy. So it's kind of like It's weird. Would you call it a Breath of the Wild clone? That's my
Not a
question.
clone, but there's a lot that it takes from Breath of the Wild for sure.
Yeah.
Like the glider, the open world mechanics, the dungeons are kind of similar.
Kind
Um,
of.
There's crafting mechanics. Well, like there's cooking mechanics that are just like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
And other stuff.
I think that it's weird, right? Because there's obviously the inspiration. You can tell just looking at it, even from the art style. Oh, this I can see that they basically went, oh, that Breath of the Wild did pretty well. Let's copy a load of things, which is the same thing Ubisoft's done with that whatever the fuck that game's called, Phoenix, whatever.
Let's just call it Gods and Monsters. I don't care what they
let's
renamed it.
let's do that. Fuck you, Ubisoft. They renamed a game that was called Gods and Monsters, which was an alright name, to Phoenix whatever Rising, blah blah blah, subtitle of bullshit. Fuck you, Ubisoft. That's so sick.
They had a generic title and they changed it to a title that was generic and more of a mouthful.
Yeah, I think they should just stuck with Gods. That's the thing. That game's going to be interesting because that's full price. But it's weird because it shares mechanics in similar ways, like the gliding and the climbing, and very much the world design feels Breath of the Wild-esque. But it doesn't feel the same with combat. I don't think the combat's similar at all. I feel like it's very much, instead of it being based on weapon durability and degradation, and very much building up your one character with armor and weapons. This is very much about elemental, combining elemental powers and upgrading characters. Because everyone's your weapon class is basically you have 4 characters that are in your party that you can swap between at any time, and each character has a locked weapon type and class type on essentially Hunter.
Okay.
So it's instead of having different weapons all on Link, it's essentially having 4 different builds that you swap in between. And it makes for some quite interesting gameplay. I don't know. What do you have to add, Kyle? 'Cause I feel like I'm rambling too much.
Yeah, I mean, for a free-to-play game, it's really expansive. Just the fact that the whole game is open world and the world is really big, and there's a lot to do in the world. It's not just a big open world that you just thrown into. Like, the whole game just feels super expansive. A lot more than I was expecting, honestly.
It's so weird. It's such a weird game, and I can see why people have really given it a chance. And to be fair, it's 100%. If you have been itching for something like Breath of the Wild for a while, that isn't exactly Breath of the Wild, but you just like, thank you, Hunter.
Yep.
But
I have to say something.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. But if you've been itching for something like this, like, fuck Gods and Monsters off. This is what you should go and get, because one, it's free, and two, like,
and also the other game isn't out yet.
Yeah, but you can fuck that off. Don't even think about it. Just go and play this, because it will scratch your itch. I don't like. My one thing for you is, how much do you think you're actually going to play of it? That's my question, because I played 6 hours today, and I was kind of into it. But it's like, when is the point where I give up? Because I have a feeling I'm not going to finish this. So, how long do you think you're going to end up playing it? I guess is the question. I'll throw it to both of you.
I give Ethan 3 more hours.
How dare
That's
you?
pretty accurate.
How dare you? I always finish my games. I'm not like Sammy Boy over here. You should be really asking. I'm surprised Sam's got like 20 hours in, Mr.
Hey, when I play a game and I'm committed to a game, I play it. You know how long I played P5 for?
Yeah, because I watched all of it.
A very long time.
Yeah.
150 hours, alright?
Some might say
So-
2.
God, that was like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It was fun, dude. It was a good time.
But it was a great 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was, dude, it was. But no. How long do you think you're going to play it, Sam? Like, realistically, how much?
I don't
Has it
know.
hooked you that
So it's
much?
already, for me, it's getting to this point where it's getting a lot harder because I started progressing the main storyline again after the prologue chapter, and things are getting a lot harder, a lot faster.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to like keep up with my character levels and stuff, but you need so many different types of resources and just like to grind different bosses to get certain things to actually increase your character levels, your weapon levels, your artifacts, all sorts of stuff. So it's just really hard to keep up. So I don't know how long I'm gonna want to play it if it's that tedious. But
I mean,
How does the game go about making things harder? Are they just like, oh yes, give the enemies more HP?
I think that's
Yeah,
basically
basically
it.
that.
Yeah, it's basically
that's
that.
pretty
Ah, great.
I
I
mean,
played a game called Freedom Wars on the Vita that basically did that, and it made the kind of cool combat in that game pretty repetitive once you started taking forever to kill things.
Yeah, bosses so far haven't expanded past hit the thing until it has no health.
yeah.
It does
There isn't
get
really,
better
like-
with bosses. There are these elite bosses that I've gotten to that are like way harder and have way more health, and they have like specific attack patterns and different things you have to actually kind of learn in order to beat them. I was playing one earlier. I don't know if you guys were watching, but it took me like half hour to beat him because I had to
Yeah.
figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, there's a few bosses that are like, oh, shoot it in the weak point with an arrow, and then you get a free punish on it. But outside of that, like, at least so far for me, I haven't gotten to anything really too extreme.
Yeah, the more interesting
Of course
challenge.
not.
Yeah, the more interesting
Still in
challenges.
prologue, though.
Yeah, the more interesting challenges to me so far haven't necessarily been the bosses where it's just, oh, health bar, finish it. But there's been quite a few challenges where it's like, oh, defeat X number of enemies in like a minute and a half. And those to me have
Yeah.
been more of the challenge, because the game kind of says, yeah, we know that you could beat all these enemies if we gave you unlimited time. But because they put like that minute and a half on you to kill these 10 enemies, it very much forces you to think about how you're actually playing the game and not just button mash it. It kind of makes you go,
Right.
oh, I need to use these elemental abilities now. So, oh, I actually have to use my brain, which God knows, I hate. But it's like, oh, I've just, there's stuff like, oh, that guy's shield's made of wood. I can then set fire to the guy's shield, and
Oh, that's
his
cool.
shield disintegrates and burns away. But then on top of that, I'm like, oh, but while it's burning, why don't I just fuck him up even more and switch to my wind elemental elemental character and then blow wind in their face, so then the fire goes onto them and does major damage onto them and on top of it. And it's kind of those kind of
baby, you hit him with a technical.
Yeah, it's basically technicals, right? But it's one of those, it's a weird like kind of system, whereas instead of, I feel like Breath of the Wild wanted you to experiment with its environment and the way you go about doing things, right? So it's like, oh, there's a bokoblin camp underneath me, right? And there's a rock here, so I could very much use the physics to knock the ball into the camp and roll all over all of them. Or, oh, hey, there's a lamp hanging up there. Let me shoot an arrow at the lamp so that it drops down and it lands on the explosives and blows the whole camp up, right? There's stuff like that. Whereas this game instead is not necessarily physics-based, and there's not really much physics-based puzzles or anything going on. It's more of, oh, you've got X amount of elements. Let's see how you can kind of combo them into technicals and make use of all these characters. Because at first I'm like, oh, they're pretty lenient letting you swap your characters about, and it turns out that's intended. They want you swapping all the time. They don't want you just going, this one character, this is my fucking main, and I'm not switching off them, and I'm just going to button match. You can do that for a lot of the standard enemies, sure, but I feel the game really wants you, when it's got a larger health pool, to be swapping constantly, getting technicals, trying to swap between abilities. Everyone's got cooldowns that carry on cooling down even when you're not playing as that character. So you can use an ability swap off someone else, and their ability's cooling down in the background, when in a lot of these games, you tend to have, oh, cooldowns are stacked, so if you swap to someone else, that cooldown will stay there, and then when you come back, you still gotta wait the 20 seconds. That's not how this game works. I feel like it's less, there's still stuff to explore, don't get me wrong, there's still the explorative element of Breath of the Wild, but it's a lot more focused on the combat than Breath of the Wild was.
For sure.
The combat certainly has a lot more depth than I was even expecting it to, because like you hear the phrase free-to-play gotcha game,
Yeah.
and your brain just like goes to the worst thing imaginable.
The Metal
Like
Gear
fucking-
exclamation mark noise is like, oh god, here we go.
Just like a pay-to-win game all
Uh-oh,
the
I'm
way
in
through.
danger.
But like the combat just keeps you so engaged, and thinking of how you can combine your different elements together is really, it's really such an intuitive concept. I'm really enjoying it a lot.
I can't wait to see how this game grows. That's the interesting thing,
Yeah.
right? I don't see myself playing it for, say, the 100 hours I played Breath of the Wild for back in 2017. I don't see that happening. Like you say, I might only play for, like, say, 5 more hours, 10 more hours, whatever have you. But I can see myself very interested in, like, going... Especially because I will get to the nitpicks of co-op in a second. But especially in the future... Like, I can see them going, oh, we've added a new region to the map, and we've added all this new stuff. Come in and play. We've added some new heroes, we've added some new characters into the gacha so that you can give us more money or whatever, but we've added this new area. Come on in, see what it's like. And I can very easily go, you know, I've got nothing that I've got planned to play recently. I'll hop back into Genshin.
Got a couple hours to kill.